Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this meeting of Executive on what date is it? The 3rd of June. I just remembered. So I'm Councillor Claire Douglas, and I'm the leader of the council, and Executive is one of the two main decision-making bodies of the council. So going directly to the agenda, item number 1 is apologies for absence. And I have no apologies, everybody is present. Item number 2 is declarations of interest. Does anybody have any declarations? Councillor Kilbane, can you go ahead, please?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Councillor Pete Kilbane, Executive Member for Economy and Culture and Deputy Leader. Just for absolute transparency, item number 8, to do with the York Business Improvement District. I am a board member of York BID, but I'm there as a representative of the council. So it's not any personal pecuniary interest whatsoever. So I will participate in that item. Item 9, however, I do have a pecuniary interest in a business on Bishopthorpe Road. So I will remove myself from the meeting at that point, Chair, as indeed I have done at every point where these things have been discussed, either inside or outside the council thus far.
Thank you, Councillor Kilbane. Item number 3 is the minutes for approval from the meeting held on the 22nd of April 2025. Can I see those who are in favour of approving those as an accurate record of that meeting? Thank you, that's unanimous. Thanks, everybody. And item number 4 is public participation. And so today we have 10 speakers. And everybody has 3 minutes, and for everybody is in the room, as I understand it. And you come up to the desk there if you've not done it before. There's a microphone in front of you, and there's a mic button that needs to turn green before you speak. And I will ask everybody if they want a 30-second warning on the 3 minutes, because 3 minutes is a hard, fast cut-off, and I'm more than happy to give you a indication of when that's arising. So the first person to speak to us is Johnny Hayes. If you'd like to come and sit at the table, Johnny. And he's going to speak to us on agenda item 9, which is the parking charges review. So please go ahead, Johnny. Would you like a 30-second warning? Okay, thank you. Please go ahead.
I confess I've just come back from Robin Hood's Bay and I've not prepared a speech, but never mind. I think we all know where this story begins. I know the meeting this afternoon is to look at parking generally, but I would very much like to speak from the Bishy Road perspective as a former shopkeeper from Bishy Road. And the story in terms of the petition and the response that's happened since the petition started with a 500% increase in the charge, which was 80 pence and went up to £4.85 on Bishopthorpe Road. And the response to that was initially, well, shock and disbelief and anger. And people were saying, this can't be right. It can't be true. What were the council thinking of putting such a ludicrous increase? And the traders were absolutely, beside themselves, thinking, well, what impact is this going to have on our street? And that immediately was, in fact, the opinion of many people. And many of those people follow the same instincts for wanting to reduce congestion, wanted to reduce pollution. But on the other hand, the way in which this has been operated, people found was completely outrageous. And that created the largest petition that York has received from local people of 8,000 signatures. And in that, those petitioners objected, A, to the vast increase, but B, for us to look to taking our right to challenge that increase and the right to challenge the policies under the statutory guidance that there is under the 2004 traffic Management Act, and we applied to have that reviewed. And my understanding is that in principle that has been agreed, but that it needs to be ratified this evening. Can I say that anger and that disbelief, I find now, is actually moving towards wanting to make some progress, wanting to work
You've got 30
collaboratively.
seconds.
Thank you. Collaboratively. And I think that this review is a fantastic opportunity, not just for Bishey Road, because Bishey Road obviously fights its own corner, but I think that this is a review that will look at parking charges generally, because to be frank, I'm not utterly convinced by some of the data. I'm not convinced by some of the figures that are in there. And I feel a review is definitely needed.
Thank you, Johnny. That's
and I
3
look forward
minutes
to
now.
it. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you very much.
Cheers.
And I'd just like to correct a couple of things that you said. Surprisingly, the petition isn't the largest that the council's ever had. The Union Terrace petition, which was some years ago now, was 20,000 signatures, I understand. And the TMA decision review hasn't been made. That's what this meeting is about. So I just want to make sure that we're factually correct on those. Thank you. Thank you for that. So person number 2 is Gwen Swinburne, and I have down here that you'd like to speak on items 7 and 9. Is that the case?
I've given up on 9. I've just parking.
7.
I'm doing parking, whatever number that is.
9.
9.
Okay,
So,
thank
excuse me.
you.
I gave
Please
up
go
on-
ahead. Would you like 30 seconds?
I don't need it. Thank you,
Okay,
Chair.
thank you.
Chair, I have 2 petitions from the Groves that I'm not presenting but discussing. Residents and businesses addressing unfair parking charges, increases and discriminatory practices impacting our disadvantaged community. The first petition, signed by local businesses and residents, objects to the substantial parking charge rises across the Groves and our vital urban Lowther Clarence Street shopping hub, which supports 27 street-facing businesses alone. Petitioners are deeply concerned by the council's favouritism towards wealthier areas such as Micklegate, Bishey Road and East Parade, where specially commissioned research and concessions have been granted, whilst the Groves is consistently overlooked. This contravenes each brand of your public sector equality duty, particularly disappointing from a Labour-controlled council expected to champion disadvantaged communities. The second petition, nearing completion, requests and gives a business case for a formal TRA challenge, like the Bishey Road one, and it's going to be supported by all our businesses. The formal challenge addresses the disproportionate impact of parking arrangements across the Groves, including but not only the huge parking charges increase. Despite our car parks being located outside the inner ring road, they face top-tier charges against policy, as compared with Acomb, where 250 council car park places are unlimited and free. Lord Mayor's Walk, also outside the walls, is uniquely charged premium rates for on-street parking. With 55% of the city's joint res park parking meters concentrated only in the Groves, our community bears an unfair and growing burden. The council's report entirely omits our urban shopping hub, despite its size and economic significance. I contend there are multiple breaches of equalities legislation, inconsistent policy application, and failures in consultation and legal adverts, resulting in unlawful and unfair charges and unfair relaxations. These many issues far exceed the Lendl Bridge controversy in both scale and impact. Finally, the administration has got itself into a mess here. It is so bad at this juncture, I fear for the reputation of both the Equalities and Highways staff. The council is in such clear breach of the Equalities Act, favouring a small subset of one protected characteristic, as to leave it wide open to legal challenge. As a former local government manager, I know it is your right to override both Equalities and Highways advice, but to protect officer recommendations, please, can you just have the integrity to declare you've overruled them if that's the case? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for your comments, Ms Swinburne, and they will be taken into consideration. The next person to speak is Ruth Phillips, and she'd like to speak on item number 9. Thank you. So would you like me to give you 30 seconds, Ruth? Okay, please go ahead. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ruth Phillips and I'm the co-owner of the Good Food Shop on Bishopthorpe Road. I spoke at the last meeting about the lack of consultation with businesses on Bishopthorpe Road prior to the 500% increase in car parking charges. It is positive to hear since then that the council have recognised that extensive consultation was not fit for purpose and did not reach the right people. If the council have recognised that the basis for their decision making, even if it was well intended, was flawed, then why are we still here fighting for change? We are, however, seeing a defensive PR effort from York Council rather than meaningful reflection, but we need to find a way forward together. Since the car parking charges have been put in place, not one business on Bishopthorpe Road has been contacted to measure the impact the changes are having, and there is no available footfall or congestion data. The only data that council have cited is a 37% reduction in car park use, totalling around 1,907 cars. A conservative loss of around £19,000 for the businesses on the street in just 1 month. Over a year, that's over £250,000 of lost revenue. We've been told that the council are listening and basing their decisions on data, but what data? We are also concerned that the council are taking out-of-date models of evidence from city centres across the UK and applying it to an out-of-town shopper's car park. We've been told that the council have mapped their pricing based on other cities such as Oxford and Cambridge. In Oxford, the car park price increases rose by 11% and Edinburgh by 13%, not 500%. The Scottish Climate Report that is often cited that refers to a 10% rise in car parking charges leads to a 3% fall in demand was a literature review of 49 papers, of which 61% were pre-COVID-19 and as such could be considered not relevant. What none of these studies consider is what happens to people's shopping behaviour. A more recent study in 2025 found that 62% of drivers were put off visiting their local high street due to high parking charges. The same survey found that 56% of drivers are more likely to visit a supermarket instead, 52% visiting an out-of-town shopping centre, and 44% moving their shopping online. We suggest that the high car park charges are not encouraging other modes of transport, but pushing customers elsewhere, potentially driving further. I've done some research on 11 similar high streets across the UK who have all won the Great British High Street Award, and the average hourly car parking cost is £1.25 an hour, so I'm unsure how you've reached the £3 mark. High streets that offer affordable or free parking are said to be thriving.
You have 30 seconds.
Thank you. Similar cities such as Chester and Bath offer affordable parking at £1.50 an hour. As traders, we are seeing a decrease in footfall, a half-empty car park, a significant reduction in tradings, but none of these have been taken into consideration. It's not about emotions winning over evidence, it's about actual data and evidence that is relevant. We want to work with the council to find a resolution. However, we as traders are not being listened to and decisions are being made without any meaningful consultation. A review of car parking charges is welcomed, but it must be independent, comprehensive and based on genuine engagement with those affected.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks. Thanks for those comments, and we'll certainly take them into consideration. The next person is Denise Craghill, and she'd like to speak on item number 9. Would you like me to give you 30 seconds,
Yes,
Denise?
please.
Okay, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Speaking on behalf of your Green Party. As you know, I'm here to talk about the impacts of the recent parking charge increases, but particularly on the very small local shopping parades in some of the less well-off parts of the city, such as the Groves and Walmgate. Executive members have suggested in the media that the Greens are being inconsistent by arguing for some very short-term free parking, specifically to support our local small businesses. I suggest that you're confusing consistency with your own one-size-fits-all approach that has failed to even consider the impact that such huge increases could have in some communities where small local shops are already struggling to survive. If by inconsistency you mean standing up for local communities and neighbourhoods, then I'm prepared to plead guilty. These small shops and cafes make a big contribution to the local community, providing nearby shopping options and a neighbourhood focal point in areas such as the Groves. Many people in the Groves area are now able to walk or cycle to get to the shops, taking advantage of the low traffic streets, and we share and support your aspiration for more areas like this. But this doesn't apply to everyone, and the current reality is that many of these small businesses rely on some drop-in trade to enable them to survive and so to continue offering these very local services. A change from £1.20 for an hour previously to the £3 now proposed is still a 150% increase for what might quite often be a 10 to 15-minute visit, which isn't at all helpful. Up to 1 hour free parking is still available in a number of locations around the city. It doesn't seem fair that some kind of more affordable short-term option isn't available near to local shops in some of our more deprived communities. A free first 30 minutes would be a very clear focus on supporting small local businesses, while still being in keeping with the Council's broader transport policy. I urge you to fully consider this for small local shopping parades, such as the Groves, during the continued reviews that are going to take place. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for those comments, and they will be considered. The next person is Councillor Fenton. Would you like to come to the table? You'd like to speak on item number 6, which is the housing annual report. So please go ahead. Would you like 30 seconds?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to welcome the housing annual report, and in particular would like to thank the housing staff teams for their diligence and commitment in working with ward councillors and tenants to help create safe and well-maintained communities. I'd like to thank the executive member for bringing the draft repairs policy to scrutiny for review during its development. The report notes that further details of the neighbourhood investment programme will be included in the neighbourhood model report to be considered by executive in the summer. I do hope there'll be an opportunity for more detail of the neighbourhood investment programme to be shared with scrutiny as that report is being finalised. Page 71 of the agenda pack sets out tenant satisfaction survey results, with car parking achieving a 32% satisfaction score. This is an area which perhaps would benefit from a more detailed look, recognising the links with the local transport strategy, the fact that many council properties have no off-road parking provision, and the fact that many people have no option other than to bring their work vehicles home with them, including council vehicles. Prior to 2023, in my ward, and I know in other wards, councillors were able to work with officers to invest housing estate improvement funding in a range of measures such as cycle storage lockers, eco-grid parking provision and verge crossovers. It would be good to have clarity whether similar schemes could be supported through the neighbourhood investment programme going forward. I'd briefly like to comment on the parking charges paper. I know the executive member has received correspondence from residents who attend churches in the Micklegate area, one of whom has asked me to say that they would very much welcome early clarification on Sunday morning charging arrangements, which are a cause of significant concern, which is noted in the report. The local transport strategy and the accompanying implementation plan enjoy a good degree of support cross-party and among residents. Where there is some disagreement is how the implementation plan commitments are being taken forward. For example, the plan includes a short-term commitment to develop a strategy for parking across the city, which balances the need to provide access and to reduce levels of car use. It commits to a review of parking capacity on and off street within a 2-kilometre radius initially, within the council's ownership and managed by the private sector, the demand for that parking and the charges for that parking. This parking strategy could have been prioritised. Had it been prioritised, that could have informed the charging arrangements that have given rise to this paper. Thank you. So I'd like to ask the executive to expedite this work on the parking strategy and to meaningfully engage with businesses, residents, churches, councillors and all interested parties. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments, and they'll be taken into account on the items that you've spoken on. Thank you. The next person is Andrew Lowson. Is he here? Yes, I'm sorry, I didn't see you there. Please come to the table, and you want to speak on item number 9, the parking review. Thank you. Would you like a 30-second warning? Okay, thank you. Please go ahead.
Mic on? Yeah. Good evening. Back in January, I spoke to the council executive to highlight business concerns over the proposed rise in city centre car parking charges. Since the York bid has been established in 2016, parking has remained a highly sensitive issue. We have around 3,500 charged parking spaces in the city centre, which now start at nearly £5, compared to over 6,200 free spaces at out-of-town retail parks around the city. So if generating revenue for services is a key council objective, it's clear why some of the city centre businesses perceive the current approach as unbalanced. I welcome the fact that parking charges are being reviewed tonight. As highlighted in the exec paper, the Traffic Management Act states that high parking charges drive people out of town centres. Now, York's strong tourism market helps soften this impact, and it is encouraging to see in April 2025 footfall and spend is up compared to April 2024. However, the business picture is more complex than that. The same data shows that local spending, or spend from local people, is down by 3.5%, which is a concern. Tourism isn't an all-year consistent. Many city centre businesses, for example, your hardware shops, hairdressers, banks, they rely on local customer base, not just visitors. The Minster badge is a helpful discount, but it doesn't cover people from nearby towns like your Tadcasters, your Moultons, your Easingwolds, who are also what we'd class as regular users of the city centre. I would say assessing trends just on 1 month after price rises is probably premature from all parts, especially given that Easter actually fell in April this year, unlike most of it was in March in 2024. Going forward, the bid is keen to work with the council using consistent data sets, including the footfall, the spend that we work on together, parking income and mobile phone data to better understand how local people are using the city centre. We're also gathering business feedback, some of which has already been shared with Councillor Ravilius, I know, and will continue to feed into this process. The bid board met last week and it reinstated its support to the council for its efforts to tackle congestion and carbon emissions. However, success does depend on winning hearts and minds. If dynamic pricing increases charges at peak times, can there also be incentives?
30 seconds.
Thank you. Can there also be incentives at off-peak times? Something that maybe the Beers and Visit York could help promote. And if the goal is to shift behaviour towards park and ride, when will businesses be informed about the improvements to the service and maybe the possible longer opening hours? So to conclude, the bid businesses want to reassure that customers can access the city centre affordably all year round. We're keen to work with the council on shared data, offer solutions and feed further into the business process as we move forward.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much. And your comments will be considered. The next person is Todd LePage, and he would like to speak to us on item number 9. Please come to the desk. Mr. LePage, would you like a 30-second warning?
I will say this.
Okay, thank you. Please go ahead.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today about the recent changes to parking charges on Bishopthorpe Road. Let me begin by saying I fully support your ambition to achieve carbon neutrality. Climate change is a serious and urgent challenge, and we all have a role to play. Now, I'm not here to defend car parks or unsustainable habits, but the reaction you've seen from our community is not about a small car park. It's about how decisions are made and how communities are considered in the process. To start, let me acknowledge that the sharp increase in parking charges has indeed been used as a tool to influence behaviour. But let's be clear, it's a negative motivator, and negative motivators have consequences, especially when repeated. They erode trust, reduce cooperation, and alienate the very people whose support is needed to achieve long-term goals. Our response should never be dismissed as emotional or exaggerated. When people feel talked down to, it undermines public confidence. So now, I'm asking you to imagine that a different approach had been taken, one that had begun with consultation, collaboration, and investment. Imagine if, before these parking charges were introduced, a Healthy Streets audit had been conducted to identify specifically what Bishopthorpe Road needs to help people switch to sustainable transport. Imagine if we had more than 14 bike hoops for 40+ businesses, or more than 1 bus per hour and one that actually ran on Sundays. Imagine if this had been an opportunity to create a shared space designed with the community that balanced environmental goals with local economic health. What a shining example that would be. What a positive motivational message that would have sent. the impact on congestion, community pride, and support for your vision would have been far greater. Now, if I'm being naive, please forgive me. Maybe a sledgehammer was what was required in this instance. So now I'd like to move on by correcting some public narratives. Firstly, it's come to my attention that some people assume Bishey Road is privileged, but I challenge anyone to show when the area last received meaningful investment. This lack of consideration slowly drains vitality from a thriving area, not through any single act, but through 1,000 small cuts. Secondly, your own report via York Bid states that footfall was up 7.5% in the city centre last year. However, what hasn't been reported or highlighted is that spending has declined over the previous year. In fact, spending was down 2.2% in real terms after adjusting for inflation. Finally, I will also remind you that car parking charges were implemented on the 26th of April in Bishopthorpe Road, and I would caution anyone for suggesting there was no impact on footfall or spending in April.
30 seconds.
That would be ludicrous. To sum up, as you move forward with the review on Bishopthorpe Road, I urge you to ensure it is transparent and inclusive. People want to be part of the solution, but they must be respectfully included in the process. What you do here matters. It affects people's lives and livelihoods. Please, let's work together to build something better. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. LePage, and your comments will be considered. The next person is Linda Grenier, and she'd like to speak on item number 9 as well. Linda, if you'd like to take a seat, would you like me to give you 30-second warning? Yeah, of course.
There we go. Well, good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. You should have had before this meeting the decision report review of parking charges. And as an annex to that document, there's a further document, Equalities Impact Assessment at Annex D, dated 28th of May, so just last week. This is an updated impact assessment further to the previous one dated 24th of February that you should have had before you made your decisions to increase the parking charges at your full council meeting on the 27th of February. It states at page 8 and at paragraph 4, it gives an analysis of impacts and effects of the decision made in February 2025 at that full council meeting. And it is set, those impacts are set out. And it states, so i.e., how significant could the impacts be if we did not make any adjustments to the proposed increase changes? Remember, the duty is also positive, so please identify where the proposal offers opportunities to promote equality and or foster good relations. So this analysis, page 8 of your document, analysing the impacts or effects, and it gives the equality groups and human rights groups of people who, may I remind you, are groups of people with protected characteristics. And by protected, that is protected by discrimination law, the Equality Act of 2010. May I further remind you that as a public sector, you have a public sector equality duty to consider. I'll just very briefly take you through your own findings and impacts relating to those particular equality groups. So the first one is age, and it says what the likelihood impact would be. Age, negative. This is the likely impact. Actually, in the text accompanying that, it says the negative, that it will be a negative impact. Second group, disability, will be negative. Next group, gender, negative. Gender reassignment, negative. Pregnancy and maternity, will be negative. Race, negative. Sexual orientation, negative.
You have 30 seconds.
Other socioeconomic groups, carers, negative. Local income groups, negative. So the picture here is painted that on the one hand, the City of York Council wished to rely on its extensive consultation that we're told time and again, and is referred to time and again in your documents. It wishes to rely on its extensive consultation about transport throughout its reports and assessments. On the other hand, they then
Thank you, that's
disregard
3
their
minutes that
very,
you could wind up now, thank you.
on the other hand, they then disregard their very own findings set out in the Equalities Impact Assessment. And may I say that these are also concerns shared by Rachel Maskell.
Thank you for those comments, and they'll be taken into consideration at that item. Next person is Councillor Waller, if you'd like to come to the table, Councillor. And you're going to speak to us on item 6 and 7. Would you like me to give you a 30-second warning?
Yes.
Yes, please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'm speaking on item 6 and 7. In terms of item 6, speaking with reference to funding for estate improvements and engagement with communities. On page 24 of the agenda pack, there's reference to the £170,000 neighbourhood investment programme, for which there is a general assumption that this is replacing the Housing Environmental Improvement Programme, HEAP. For the past 2 years, the HEAP programme was neither deleted nor functioning, just hidden. Within the Westfield ward, which I represent, residents' associations were asking where the funding had gone, especially for schemes to help with security in communal areas, prevent verges becoming churned up, helping buses in tight spots on routes to keep the timetables reliable, and a whole host of practical issues for which there are viable solutions. And I hope that this can be answered. We want people to take pride in the place where they live through clear investment, and for residents association and councillors to feel that they are listened to, as they know their individual areas best. And I'm sure you all do in your own wards. It's important for the functioning of democracy. The paper, however, doesn't detail how this will happen, and it's a major omission which will, I hope, be corrected following this meeting. There does also need to be clarity on where the funds can be used, as in previous times there's been great effort made under HEAP to explain capital spend requirements, physical improvements only. However, the examples in the report on where this can go appears to be revenue spend. Again, I hope that this can be clarified after this meeting. The report also refers to walkabouts, and I'm sure a number of you around the table have been on your own walkabouts over the years to discuss opportunities, issues and concerns. They can be very useful, and through experience in Westfield ward, there needs to be multiple days walkabouts to cover all of the areas to develop workable solutions to tackle problems. I hope that more detail will be provided in the forthcoming report on the neighbourhood model, and I hope that issues can be picked up as part of that work. With regards to item 7, I commend officers for the report, which is very helpful, and I appreciate the continued inclusion of the 10 years skills programme as a basis for work. Thank you, Chair. I would repeat, as I've often mentioned, that vocational training should receive as much support as possible in order to ensure that many people are continue to be engaged in education. Within the report, it's not clear how the Mayor's Inactivity Trailblazer Fund, which has a time-limited application, will work with these plans, and I hope that this can be detailed. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you for those comments, Councillor, and they'll be considered at those items. Thank you very much. Right, okay, so moving on to the next agenda item. Yes, Councillor.
Just to clarify, Chair, as some members of the public were prevented from speaking because there's 10 speakers and we've only had 9 speakers.
Yeah.
And then so Councillor Melly was registered to speak and hasn't
She
spoken.
pulled out at the last, well, sorry, she couldn't make it at the last moment. We were only just notified. I was notified by Mr. Roberts during the meeting.
Do we know how many members of the public were prevented from speaking as a result of that?
I don't myself. Yeah, okay, yeah, apologies for that, but unintended. Right, item number 5 is the forward plan. And so can I see those in favour of the forward plan as outlined, please? Thank you. So that's approved unanimously. And then item number 6 is the first item of business, so housing annual report. And we have Pauline Stutchfield and Vicky Jakes here to introduce this report to us. So please take your seats. And is there a name tag for Vicky there? No, okay. Sorry about that.
It's okay. I could pretend to be someone else.
No,
I
we have no expectation. Thank you very much. So please go ahead. Pauline, are you going to start? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Can I introduce you to the first Housing Landlord Annual Report? It sounds like a really grand announcement there, but it is quite significant actually, because it's our first report since the regulator of social housing has regulated council housing and its standards since April 2024. We returned to regulation after many, many years. And I think the format of this report is really useful. It follows the standards. It highlights achievements and areas of improvement, but then it summarises the actions that we intend to take in a forward look at the end of each section, and that's summarised in Annex C. So there are 4 standards around neighbourhood, state safety, transparency, influence and accountability, and then tenancy standards. So I guess the focus, just to identify that this report is not about the whole of housing. It is a focus on the condition, safety and tenancy, satisfaction and engagement with us as a local authority. But we do run a wide range of other services in the council, and those are summarised in paragraph 7. So it's a part of the service rather than the full service. And we do have other reports, including the housing development report that's coming to executive in September, for example. So there's quite a bit of information in this report that provides the context behind why we are where we are and what the requirements of the regulator are. I'm not going to go through the detail of that, but the rating system, for example, is summarised in paragraph 9. I'll come back to the recommendations. How we've set out this report is we're setting out the backwards look with performance, measuring ourselves and then comparing ourselves to others in the sector as well. So you're getting a good impression of where we sit against other similar organisations and nationally as well. We also talk about where we haven't really made progress or haven't got a performance framework in place, and we're working hard. I know the management team have met in the last couple of weeks, really thrashing out those areas where performance measurement isn't in place, isn't operational, and where we need to fill those gaps. Our public speakers quite rightly pointed out our areas of where we do need to improvement around tenancy standards. You have a repairs policy that we've designed with our residents and with the input of scrutiny. That's the start of a number of policy improvements around tenants that we intend to bring forward. The performance of the tenant satisfaction survey is not where we want it to be, absolutely not. What I would say though is we're an outlier in retaining an annual snapshot of tenant satisfaction. What we want to do is take a more realistic approach by measuring satisfaction as we deliver our work. So we're looking at new ways of doing that. We're looking at best practice, and hopefully in future we can give you more insight, as the public speakers said, about what sits behind that performance and how we can improve it and continue to improve engagement with our residents. Councillor Pavlovich is now our key lead on complaints, on housing complaints, and we're putting in a number of improvements around that particular area. So if I take you to the recommendations, because it's an awful lot in this report, And can I thank colleagues who have contributed to this, and particularly the strengths in the report around the health and safety compliance elements of this report, where you can see quite significant improvements over the last 18 months. So we are asking you to note the current performance levels, and extracted out of the report are those priorities for the current year. Noting all of the performance targets that we need to monitor against. Approve the adoption of the new responsive repairs policy in Annex A. Approve the capital programme, and approve the principles behind the neighbourhood investment programme. And I know we've had a number of comments about that. There will be more information when we come back on the neighbourhood model, which that supports. And we will make sure there's a mechanism by which areas can access that funding. But like the neighbourhood model itself, it will be based on the needs of our residents, based on analysis done in conjunction with our local residents, and that money will be spent on their priorities. So I think I'll leave it there for any questions. Is there anything you want to add, Vicky?
Vicky, would you like to go ahead? Please?
Yeah, I won't add much more. It was just, I just wanted to share that this is part of our approach to meeting the regulatory standards and increasing transparency around our performance. So we're open to questions and comments, and we want people to recognise that. As part of that, we've sent the link to this paper to every member of housing staff, and our intention is that we will summarise this paper after you've discussed it and whether there are any changes to recommendations, etc. And we're going to summarise that and send it to all of our customers as our annual report, so they can scrutinise our performance as well.
Thank you for that, Vicky. Can I see who would like to speak on this item, please? Councillor Eyre, would you like to go ahead? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, I won't go into the specifics. Councillor Waller and Councillor Fenton have raised a number of issues that I'm sure Councillor Pavlik will pick up, and obviously echo Councillor Fenton's thanks to the staff and they've put into the work on this. The one thing I did want to raise in terms of this is how we deal with KPIs and what we're doing with KPIs, which I've included in this report. Key performance indicators are measuring how you're performing in a trajectory. Placing them entirely in context and then in an aspirational future doesn't really tell us anything about what we're doing in terms of performance. I think by not including those historical data, we're really trying to hide in many ways the way the service is actually performing. So I just picked out some of the key performance data going forward. So for example, residents that are overall satisfied is presented in this paper as 60%. That was 70% the year before. That's a 10% decline in residents that are satisfied. Residents satisfied with the handling of ASB, this report, 33%. That was 43.4%. That's another 10% decline. Residents who think that we're making a positive contribution, 38%. That's down from 45.2 the year below, 70% when this administration took over. And quick comparison, so overall satisfaction, 70% before this administration, 60%. Positive contribution, 70% before this administration, 38% now. That is a managed decline in what people think of our housing service. That is really, really worrying. And none of that was included in this paper. And the fact that we were issued with a separate agenda supplement on the Friday before the meeting that offered an entirely different opinion of the tenant satisfaction, deleted some of the more negative ones and replaced them with other ones. That was quite an interesting approach. I think what we need to realise is the first step to improving a service is accepting where we're going wrong. And this paper should have highlighted those areas where residents are en masse saying the service is getting progressively worse and highlighting it. It's fantastic to have aspiration, but we need to accept where we're declining, accept that decline and look at how we turn around and make improvements going forward.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre. Pauline or Vicky, would you like to respond to any of that with technical aspects only? Thank you.
I'll respond with an apology in terms of the updated data. The paper was drafted some time ago and had some of last year's figures in and a combination of other figures, and our business intelligence team had time to review the paper, and then the changes weren't made until you got the update. So that was entirely a sort of an updating administrative error. I think I think that's fair. The intention was actually to bring a snapshot and to say this is where we are now. This is the data that will go to the regulator. This is what they will be judging us on. So it was to give you that information to say this is where you are. This is what we'll be submitting. So the historic data isn't in because this is our first year to the regulator. But no intention of hiding anything. The figures are all there and they will be shared with all of our customers. And as I say, they've all gone to all staff.
Okay, thank you for that, Vicky. I really appreciate it. Councillor Pavlovic, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Chair. And unusually, I have written my comments down today. And the reason for that is because this is a very detailed and comprehensive report. And I'd like to thank Pauline for presenting the paper tonight, to Vicky, and especially to Michael Jones for what I consider to be a really well-written report. I think this is, contrary to earlier comments, the most transparent report about the state of social housing that the city has ever produced. When we were discussing the report, I very much wanted it to reflect the good, the not so good, and the areas that we needed to improve. And it's absolutely vital that the city, but most importantly our tenants, know exactly where we are, what we're doing, and how we intend to improve, so that we can all have confidence that what we say we will do, we actually do. We're certainly not there yet, but we're definitely heading in the right direction, with a clear plan and an absolute focus in achieving a C1 standard with the regulator of social housing. It will take time, but the report highlights some of the tangible improvements that our housing teams, both building services and housing management, have made. I welcome the scrutiny that we will be under from the regulator, but the reality is that we are, and we have always been, under the scrutiny of our tenants. What they want and deserve is to be treated with respect when they contact us, to know what is happening and when, and to have any repairs done in a timely manner, done well, and when things go wrong, as any organisation managing 7,500 homes and 27,000 repairs a year will do, put things right quickly. We're already seeing progress. Almost every metric is showing improvement since Labour took over the administration in May 2023. Repairs completed on the first visit, now almost 83%, which, when much of our housing stock is built before the 1950s, and a significant number using non-standard construction methods, time taken to complete repairs have reduced, and most impressively, our work to turn around empty properties to relet has almost halved from 86 days in the last year of the previous administration to 43 days at the end of this financial year. But we know that satisfaction is not, even with those figures, is not where it should be. So we can and we will do better still. The unprecedented investment we have made in our housing stock has already started to pay dividends. One of our first decisions was to fund the very first stock condition survey of all of our housing stock. To date, over 6,400 assessments have been done. The others, where access has been difficult, will be hopefully completed this year. This has identified repairs that haven't previously been reported, and work has now been scheduled to replace kitchens and bathrooms, as well as doors and windows, and resolve damp and mould problems. However, it's not enough to just understand the bricks and mortar. We also need to understand our tenants better. and to identify the communal areas that need improvement, as was pointed out by both of our speakers and in the written representation that we've received. And I certainly accept those comments and the need to make sure that communities feel listened to, and that where they identify issues, that we act on them. We know there's more to do here, which is where the neighbourhood model that we will be presenting to exec shortly, and which will bring communities together with the council and other statutory and voluntary sector partners, will bring improvements across the city. I'm pleased that we've brought the neighbourhood model and the repairs policy to scrutiny, and the feedback across party was positive. We have taken suggestions for changes and improvements from the committee on board and incorporated them into strategies. So, Chair, can I commend this report to Executive and ask that the recommendations contained within it are adopted? And I look forward to next year's annual housing report, and I'm convinced we will see even greater improvements. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pavlovic. I totally concur with your points, and I think we all, that includes us as councillors and also staff, understand where our weaknesses are now through this work, recognise them, absolutely determined to make the change that sees those improvements for our tenants. And I know in the conversations that you have with staff every day, and that Pauline and Vicky have, that is absolutely the case. And it really has highlighted the fact that the council hasn't fully understood the state of our properties, where the good properties are and where the improvements are needed. And that investment in the condition report has been really important for our understanding. It's been, it wasn't supported by the previous administration, so relatively shied away from. But we are being open and honest, and I think that's a good thing, and that's the only way that you make positive improvements, and inviting scrutiny in from outside of the organisation. And so I do hope that over time, as you outline, we'll start to see those metrics of tenants' satisfaction improve. And it's hugely important to me that that does happen, and I know it is to you and to all of us sat at the table here. So thank you for that. And on that, I would like to thank everybody for their work on this. There's been a huge amount of time, effort and expertise that's gone into it. And on page 7 of the report, that's the supplement, which is the updated report that Vicky referred to, at paragraph 16, we've got recommendations 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. And those are 16.1, note the current performance levels across the council's landlord services and the proactive approach to working alongside the regulator of social housing. 2, approve the priorities for 25-26 as highlighted within the report and summarised in Annex C, and note the related performance targets seeking to deliver further improvements to the quality of service provided for council house tenants. 3, approve the adoption of a new responsive repairs policy for tenants of council houses, Annex A. 4, approve the 25-26 capital programme contained in Annex B. And 5, approve the principles of the neighbourhood investment programme, allowing the service to respond more effectively to the priorities of council house tenants. And note that further details will be included in the neighbourhood model report to be considered by Executive this summer. So can I see those in favour of those recommendations, please? Thank you. So those are approved unanimously, and thank you for joining us this evening. And please take our thanks back to the team, and please go forward and get on with the work now. Thank you. Thank you. Our next item is item number 7, which is the York Learning Accountability Statement for 25-26. And we have Paul Cliff joining Pauline Stutchfield, who's at the table already. So who is going to start on this one? Pauline, please go ahead. Thank you.
just a brief introduction, just to say that this statement is required from the council annually in order for it to draw down the funding of post-16 provision from the Adult Skills Fund. So that our key funding is very much dependent on this statement, which needs to be submitted by the end of the month for us to access that. We have received written comments this morning around the detail in this report, whether there is enough evidence here for sufficient scrutiny and key metrics. I'd just like to say that this service is really highly regulated and scrutinised. Financially, the service is externally audited by our Veritas service. Educationally, we are reviewed by Ofsted, and we were inspected by Ofsted just before Christmas, and we received a good assessment across the board. We have to produce a report on current academic year's planning to scrutiny in June and July each year. This is slightly a strange process in terms of timing, because we have to have the accountability statement done by the end of June, and yet we're reporting to scrutiny on the current academic year at the same time. So it's all a bit strange. But scrutiny do have an annual update report on performance, including all KPIs. Also, York Learning has a separate governing body or board, which again, the progress is scrutinised, and that progress was accepted by that board in March 2025. Of course, every funder that York Learning accesses requires returns, detailed returns to evidence work delivered and the outcomes for individual learners. And just to say that the table on the accountability statement is dictated by the Department for Education, and we are limited to highlighting a few priorities, and by no means all priorities. So on that note, if you've got any questions on the detail, we are asking you to approve the statement and the action plan supporting that statement. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Paul, would you like to say anything at this point? Please go ahead.
Thank you. And thanks for the opportunity. I think it's just to stress that what we're trying to do with the accountability statement is show just how we align our funding with the priorities of the council and the priorities locally. And that's what we're trying to do with the way that the document is lined out. As Pauline has identified, it's a template that we're stuck with working within. But we've tried to show within that just how much positive work we are achieving within York Learning, enable you to see that work very much aligns with your aspirations, but also allows us to align with the aspirations of the combined authority, and also aligns the opportunities to maximise the funding, as Councillor Waller identified through Trailblazer, in terms of aligning what we are here for. We're not just here to provide a specific point of learning. We're here to make a real difference and be part of that key preventative agenda. And we've tried to address that within this, and hope that that's clear within the statement, so that you're able to make those approvals.
Thank you for that, Paul. Can I see who'd like to speak on this item? Councillor Kilbane, would you like to go ahead? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Paul and Pauline. And I think you're doing yourself a slight disservice, because you certainly brought the template to life. But I do have to say the pleasure that I was experiencing reading the report and all the great work that's going on in York Learning, which has been a real privilege to be close to over the last couple of years, turned to sadness as I realised that I would be handing this over to Councillor Webb later this year, as it changes portfolio holders into education, which I guess is where it should sit really. But well, no, it's been a real pleasure to work with you and the team over the last couple of years. It was great to see, not just to see the good that we got from Ofsted last year before Christmas, but actually there was pleasure in the team, but that was mixed with a tinge of disappointment that they didn't get outstanding, and that was kind of, because they weren't that far off. So that was really great to see. Just a couple of things that I want to pull out of the report. Yes, All of the funding now is aligned to skills, and that's quite right, and I'll talk about that in a second, but also in there, and it's key to our commitment in York, is that education and opportunities for education and learning are also about developing stronger communities. You know, and I think we live at a time where communities are being purposely divided by some political parties, where people are being told all kinds of untruths, and actually, you know, having the skills, the knowledge, and the confidence to discover the world for yourself and understand the world for yourself as part of your community, which is the work that you do. You can't underestimate that. It's absolutely vital. And that happens in centres all over the city, close to where people live, in settings that they're comfortable with tutors who make them feel totally at home. And it's great to see, because in York, we do live in a very unequal city. I think you call them masked inequalities in the city, because they are. It can be hidden from view that we have some of the most deprived communities in the UK living in this city. And if you are living, growing up in a community that is relatively poor in York, you really feel it, because you can see the affluence around you. And our message to everybody in York is that our job, and the job that you do, is to create those pathways to opportunity. And to echo what Councillor Waller was talking about earlier, it's not all about academic qualifications. You know, it's really annoying the way that our whole society seems to be obsessed with academic qualifications, where, quite simply, for lots of people, that model just doesn't suit. It's not the way they learn. It's not particularly styles of learning that they can follow, and quite often it's not what they're interested in. So making sure that we open up those pathways so that you can earn a decent living, so that you can afford to buy a house in York, raise a family in York, is something that we are absolutely committed to as an authority. And it's actually something that you and your team open the doorways to help happen in the city. So thank you to yourselves and to everybody who's working with it. And as you might be able to tell from my tone and enthusiasm, Chair, I'm more than happy to recommend the accountability statement to Executive.
Thank you, Councillor Kilbane. Yes, very resounding support there, and I have to say it's really nice to have you come along and talk about the Ofsted rating that you got. I know it wasn't quite what you were looking for, but good across the board is still great. It's better than good in my eyes. And now it sits alongside our Children's Services rating of outstanding across all categories as well, which is absolutely fantastic. And it's great to see services moving forward in such a proactive way. So thank you to you and your teams for everything that you are doing in the city. It's hugely important and can't be underestimated at all. So on that happy note, I will ask everybody to look at the recommendations on this report, which are on page 90 and 91 of the agenda packet, paragraph 16. And it says there that executive members are asked to approve the accountability statement and action plan at the annex to this report ahead of publication at the end of June 2025. So can I see those who are in favour of approving the accountability report? So that's approved unanimously as well. So thank you very much for everything you're doing. Please go and thank the team, Paul. I really appreciate it. Thanks very much. Right, item number 8 is York Business Improvement District Ballot for 2026 to 2031. So Claire, you're the only person at the table, is that correct? Yes, yep, you're on your own. Okay, thank you very much. Claire Fole, who is the Chief Strategy Officer, is going to introduce this paper to us. So please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. The report in front of you today outlines the intention of York Bid to seek a third 5-year term in York, beginning, if successful, following your approval today, on the 1st of April 2026. Currently, 892 businesses pay a bid levy in York with a value of around £800,000 a year. The council is a levy payer, but also we carry the responsibility for holding the ballot for the bid. The process will be administered by the council's returning officer, acting in the statutory capacity of ballot holder and independently of the City of York Council as a levy payer. With your approval, this will take place in October this year, so October 2025, with support from colleagues in legal and electoral services. The Secretary of State has also been informed of the bid's intention to seek another term in York. Several changes are to be made to the administration of the bid, as current procedures have been put in place for almost 10 years now. This means that this is not a ballot renewal process, but instead an entirely new ballot. Changes include a levy multiplier, a recognition of the inflationary increase, a maximum charge cap, a change to the geographical boundary, and a look at the service level agreement to take on board executive comments, particularly the member request to ensure that city centre planting schemes continue to include bee-friendly pollinator plants. An equality impact assessment has carried out and is attached to the report, and council baseline information has been provided by the relevant service areas, and comments have been received on the content of this report from all service heads, with no detrimental impacts or concerns raised. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Claire. Would anybody like to speak on this item? Okay, Councillor Kilbane, please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I think I'll speak as the council representative here rather than the bid board member. I think the bid do a really great job in the city centre. They're really valued by all of the levy payers, but also by all the other partners in the city. So that's us as a city council, but also all the civic organisations, cultural organisations, because they really do make that difference to give the city the lift. I really enjoy this time of year walking around seeing the picnic benches that they put out, because what that says to the residents of York is that you can come into the city, bring a picnic with you from home if you want, and then just enjoy the place where you live, and no one's going to charge you for sitting at that bench. I think so, and certainly what the bid is always very reflective and considered in its actions that it takes. It is also a robust and critical friend to the council, and we indeed are to them on occasion. But that relationship is really valuable. You know, we need people to tell us where they think things could be improved or directions to travel, etc. And that is also greatly valued by us. So, absolutely back the recommendations to support the bid in their campaign, to conduct the ballot, noting the baseline services, and the bid is a key city partner, and hope it will be so for many years to come.
Thank you, Councillor Kilbane. And yes, I'd like to echo your support for this. The bid over its 2 terms now has done a fantastic job, and the partnership working and joint investment in the city centre has really paid off. The level of activity and care and attention that goes into the city centre, which gets an absolute battering, let's be honest about it, from our 9 million visitors a year, plus everybody else that lives here and works there, etc., it can't be underestimated. It is a never-ending job, and it's only through that partnership working that we together manage to keep it looking as it does, and there's always room for improvement, and everybody accepts that. But it really is a huge task that a lot of people put a lot of time and effort in. And I believe some of the rejuvenation days are coming up in the middle of the month again, where the bid will take out their volunteers and our volunteers and go and paint some bollards and clean up bins, etc., to try and keep the place looking great, which is a really tough job. But I want to really support them for that, and all the support that they give to their local businesses and their levy payers as well, with any challenges that they have in operating their business. So on page 125 at paragraph 13, we have the recommendations, and those are that executive is asked to support the bid in their campaign to secure a 3rd term in York through a ballot of all businesses in the bid geography. B, request that the leader of the council cast the council's ballot votes in support of a further term. C, note the content of the council's baseline service level agreements. D, note the role of the York bid as a key city partner in supporting the city centre economy. And can I see all of those who are in favour of those recommendations, please? So that's unanimously approved. So Claire, if you can communicate with the bid for us, please, to go ahead and start that process at the appropriate point. And yes, I will be casting my ballot on behalf of the council to support a further term for the York bid. Thank you very much. Thanks for attending tonight. Oh, okay. Sorry, you're staying. Very good. Thank you. So the next agenda item is agenda item number 9, and that is review of parking charges. And here we have Claire Fold is staying with us, and we have Patrick Looker, who is now the Assistant Director of Finance. Very good. Have you got a name tag there, Patrick? Is there one for you?
No,
Doesn't look like
I'm a late
it.
one
Okay,
to the
okay.
meeting.
All right. Thank you very much. Please go ahead. Are you starting, Claire?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for inviting officers to Executive today to present alternative car parking charging proposals for your consideration. Thank you too to the whole the public participants who have shared their feedback today and taken time out of their busy diaries to attend today's Executive. Gary Taylor, Director of City Development, is unable to attend today's Executive, and I'll take this feedback back to him for consideration in the review outlined in the report, and I'll pick up some points later. The report you have today follows an initial report approved by full council that set the council's budget in February 2025 and included a new charging regime for the city's car parks. The increased charges proposed to council in the budget report reflected our big transport conversation consultation when residents told us the rhythm of their lives was dictated by the roads and networks that dominate the city, advocating for a reduction in car journeys by some 20%, with the subsequent transport strategy setting an ambition for residents to benefit from a healthier, more sustainable and better connected city. The increased charging was set to help reduce congestion that would then lead to buses being a more viable option for residents. In tandem, the council has invested over £50 million in bus improvements, including changes to Station Gateway and the Bus Services Improvement Plan, both of which are still delivering and are currently underway. In addition, at the time of the Budget Council, Executive committed to review the impact of these increased charges on residents and businesses. More recently, over the last few weeks, residents and businesses have petitioned and made representations to Executive members to reconsider the car park charging, particularly at sites outside the inner ring road. I would like to thank all the businesses and residents who shared this feedback or signed the petitions. And for Executive to note, the blacked out pages in Annex B, the East Parade petition, is so we don't share signatories' names and postcodes. There were in fact 375 signatories included, with 8,000 referenced in Annex A, the Bishopthorpe Road petition. I would also like to confirm to the public participants that all petitions will be taken into account with the review across the city, as I understand from today that some are still pending. The report today includes economic data to demonstrate the impact of the car park charges, noting it is only a very small sample which cannot show trends or patterns, with a more detailed review to follow. This review will include both footfall, bus use, car park use, traffic and spend data. We are also exploring whether the footfall data that we include could include the location or the initial location to help us understand the locality of the actual visitor themselves, as well as a consultation with community groups to better understand the impact on them. This includes business communities and faith groups and visitor feedback. This is because data alone will not tell us if we are inadvertently impacting residents, communities or businesses. And to continue to listen and learn, we need to provide that opportunity for people to share the lived experience to inform the next equality impact assessment and to inform the executive recommendations that will come back to you following the review. Initial indications from the data are that although the city is performing well, with Parliament Street footfall and spend outperforming the rest of the UK and above year-on-year levels, the independent data we commissioned shows a more mixed picture for the urban shopping districts of Heworth, Bishopthorpe Road and East Parade. This independent data from a company called Beauclair is published on open data for anyone to view. It dates back to January 2022 and is up to and inclusive of April 2025. It also includes sector spend, however, it does not include footfall or location of visitor. As a result of listening and learning to everyone who's contacted, petitioned or made representations to the council, we are now presenting a series of recommendations to executive to consider making changes to the car parking charges and initiate a review of the impact, particularly at Bishop Road under a review of parking policies under the Traffic Management Act. That's one other point. If executive choose to approve these recommendations, we will need to advertise the proposals for 21 days and then ensure the machines are updated. It is likely the new charges will be in place during July. We will also initiate a refund for minister badges, low vehicle emission discount and rest park parking. We are hoping to automate this refund and will confirm details later. Recommendations are on paragraph 30. Finally, I will take back the extent we can design the review to then inform the development of a citywide car parking strategy and will bring recommendations to executive member at a different time. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. Do you want to add anything at this point, Patrick?
The only thing is really to highlight Annex C, which is in the report, which details the proposed charges at each of the council's car park facilities. And what we've also done is included a comparison of the charges that we made last year, those charges that were agreed at Budget Council in February, and the proposed charges now, so you can see the trail of how they've changed over the period.
Thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. Can I see those who'd like to speak on this item? Councillor Eyre, do you want to go ahead? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think just on reflection, we're in an entirely unsatisfactory situation. And I think this unsatisfactory situation was entirely predictable. It could have and should have been avoided. For 2 years and at several full councils, I've been asking for a comprehensive parking strategy and a comprehensive parking review. And I've been told at every turn that it was imminent, it was coming, it was imminent. Over 2 years in, we haven't got there yet. The previous administration took a thorough and comprehensive parking assessment that ran over 400 pages long about how we approach parking in this city. That was labelled by the Labour opposition at the time as entirely unsatisfactory. In fact, Johnny Hayes, who is here today, he's gone, equally said that at over 400 pages long, it didn't go into the level of detail that was required to plan stop parking in the city. Yet here we have nothing, no information whatsoever. We have policy being made on the hoof. I'm not sure if anybody around this table, I certainly don't know, none of the residents I talk to have any idea what this administration's policy is now. Is it pricing for modal shift? Because if it's pricing for modal shift, it's £4.85. That was the information we were given. So if it's not £4.85, then it isn't pricing for modal shift. Is it just pricing for money? We were told we have a financial black hole and it's entirely about money. If so, if it's just about money, why is it £3, not £2.80, not £3.20? The £3 figure is entirely arbitrary. None of the policy positions anymore make any sense whatsoever. Ourselves as Liberal Democrats, we've listened to residents, we've listened to businesses. We offered you an amendment at the last budget that was put 3 times the amount of money back into this than you're proposing forward today. And that was fully costed. This isn't costed, the 115 isn't costed. We offered you 3 times that and fully costed, and you refused that. That would have allowed, for example, the 30-minute option to be reintroduced. In contrast, Labour have done absolutely no consultation, as has been demonstrated this evening in the press, elsewhere. The budget consultation itself was pretty poor. We all accepted the budget consultation was poor. In this level, it was very, very poor. Having a quick look at it, the parking fee charges were submitted as an annex, a supplementary annex, the day before the executive meeting. They weren't even part of the consultation. They weren't even part of the budget papers that went to executive. They were published the day before the executive. No engagement with business, no engagement with residents. I'm glad the chair corrected Johnny Hayes earlier on, because it's absolutely right. Labour's transport policy historically has been one of mass petitions. And you're absolutely right, 8,000 isn't highest, it's the second highest. I think you do actually hold the record for the 3 highest. One after that was about benches at 5,000. But yes, 22,000 people the last time you decided to implement parking changes without consulting anybody. That was Union Terrace. So what we have now is a U-turn. But worse than the U-turn is it's half-hearted and it doesn't actually please anyone. It doesn't encourage modal shift because the pricing level is wrong. It doesn't plug the financial gap because the pricing is wrong. It doesn't help local businesses. It continues to hammer them. And as we're seeing everywhere, it embarrasses the city nationally and internationally as people are videoing our parking charges and putting them on TikTok and various things around. We're looking, and I watched a video this morning of Castle Car Park of people walking around saying, I can't believe people charge £4.85 for this car park. Now, as a group, we have no issue with modal shift, but modal shift requires investment. You need to improve the bus network. We need to see the introduction of franchising, which the mayor has promised and isn't happening. We need to see investment in dial and ride. Provide people with the options, they will start to shift and move towards public transport. If you just hammer them and offer no public transport alternatives, all you're doing is hitting people who can't afford it. This current paper, I think, probably is the worst of all worlds. We're back to a point of no strategy, a policy vacuum, an administration with knee-jerk reactions. The report in itself is pretty much a sticking plaster to a self-inflicted wound. As a bare minimum, I think you do need to reintroduce the 30-minute free parking and commit to a proper comprehensive review. In reality, you shouldn't be introducing any major changes to parking ahead of a comprehensive review.
Thank you, Councillor Eyre, for those very helpful comments. Councillor Ravilius, would you like to start? Thank you.
Traffic congestion is throttling York. We've got buses that are delayed and unreliable, deliveries are delayed. We've got daily reports of traffic collisions, which puts people off from walking and cycling. Essential workers are delayed from doing their jobs properly. They're sitting in traffic jams, and lives are put at risk when emergency services can't get through. As the city continues to grow, this will only become worse. Contrary to what Councillor Eyre has said, we are already investing heavily in sustainable travel and improving our highways. Some of this is detailed in the report. Though it's clear that those investments in sustainable travel are bringing fantastic results already. We've got 14.6 million journeys taken in York on the buses last year, compared to 13.2 million the year previously. 2024 had the busiest park and ride season since 2017, pre-COVID. And in December alone, it carried nearly 500,000 passengers. We've now sold over 1 million young persons £1 fares. So things really are going in the right direction. But this investment will bring diminishing returns unless we tackle traffic congestion at the same time. Our bus data shows us that the main reason for delay and unreliable services across the region, so not just in the city centre, but all the way out to Whitby, Selby, Leeds, Harrogate and Easingwold, all of those places, all of the buses are delayed because they get snarled up in the heavy traffic in the centre of York. Raising parking charges is a proven way of tackling congestion with good evidence for its effectiveness. Done alongside other interventions, such as our proposed sustainable travel corridor in the city centre, it will bring a positive step change in public transport for York. There is also strong evidence that interventions that reduce car use bring benefit to high streets with increased footfall and spend. Parking data from previous years for car parks in York show that a 12% rise in prices resulted in around 5% fewer transactions, but 5% more income. And city centre footfall figures at the same time went up 8%, suggesting that at least some people had switched to other modes of transport. Preliminary data for this year shows that York continues to buck the trend with strong signs of growth and footfall increase. Parking prices as part of our budget were priced so that 2 hours of parking was equivalent to a family bus ticket. That helps to incentivise bus travel and create a more equitable access to travel, recognising that 1 in 4 households in York and 1 in 5 households across the UK don't have access to a car and are more likely to depend upon buses. However, since introducing those increased charges, we've listened to concerns raised by businesses and residents and reflected on what we've heard. We've taken on board that our budget consultation wasn't as far-reaching as it might have been, and we recognise that in some areas where the parking prices were previously anomalously low, the new pricing has come as a surprise and feels too much too soon. We've now reviewed our pricing model and adapted introducing lower parking prices in local shopping and residential areas outside of the inner ring road, using a data-led and evidence-based approach. I'd like to thank all the officers who have put in so much work into developing the model in the first place and helping us develop that amended pricing model. It's been a huge amount of work, and I never realised how complicated parking charges could be. I'm baffled by the Greens proposing that the first 30 minutes of parking is free. I kind of might expect it from the Lib Dems, but it's completely contrary to the evidence and a step that would encourage short car trips and add to traffic congestion. It also buys into the false narrative that high streets rely on customers arriving by car in order to thrive. Much of the challenge around parking charges has come from Bishopthorpe Road and Micklegate, areas that previously had some of the cheapest parking charges in close proximity to the city centre. However, we also recognise that less vocal communities in other parts of the city deserve the same recognition. So the Groves, as one of our public speakers mentioned, and it's fair to say that the Guildhall ward councillors have made good representation to me on this as well, with raising concerns around their areas in their wards. And that's why our revised parking charges extend the reduced rate to all paid for parking areas outside of the inner ring road. Traders on Bishopthorpe Road have previously argued that the customers that drive to Bishopthorpe Road are small in number and therefore have minimal impact on city centre congestion. However, the petition of over 8,000 signatures and the many emails that I've subsequently received demonstrate how widespread their customer base is, with visitors coming to Bishopthorpe Road from across the region. This is absolutely testament to the success of this fantastic high street, but it also requires recognition that whenever any of us drive to the shops, and I'm including myself here as a driver, I drive, I cycle, I take the bus, I do all of those things, we are all contributing to the congestion in the city. We've made an exception in the paper here in our proposals to that Micklegate, which is inside the inner ring road, will also join the reduced rate for parking charges. That's because the data that we have shows that Micklegate's on-street parking has experienced a greater drop in parking demand than other areas of on-street parking within the city walls. There are 7 other areas inside the city walls that had previously anomalously low parking charges. That's £1.20 as compared to over £3 elsewhere, including 3 spaces at the end of Walmgate, for example. Those other areas, excluding Micklegate, haven't seen such a significant drop in parking demand. And so we've decided that Micklegate needs some time to adjust. So we've included it on that same rate as the outside of the city walls rate. Eliminating this inconsistency in parking pricing is really important. There's previous research which has shown that as much as 1/3 of city centre traffic is drivers searching for parking spaces. Having a handful of locations with significantly cheaper parking adds to that searching for for parking spaces. We have made sure that the Minster badge discount offers a really good discount for people who live within the City of York boundary. So it has a 30% discount. That means that for people who are residents who are coming to the areas outside of the inner ring road, it will cost £2.10 per hour. And if they're coming to the inner ring road or inside, it will be £3.40 per hour. This reflects the year-round support that local residents provide to the businesses in our city and the importance of encouraging them to also come to the city and enjoy the city. We've agreed to undertake a review and develop a policy around travel to places of worship, and I'm working with our Equalities, Diversity and Inclusion Officer to get this started now. I've had some challenge asking why we're not already seeing a reduction in traffic congestion, having introduced the charges. I agree with the public speakers that it's far too soon to assess the impact of the increased charges. Preliminary data from that first month suggests that the charges are broadly having the impact that we'd anticipate. So we've increased charges on average 50%, and that's resulted in a 13% drop in parking demand and a 24% increase in revenue. But it takes time for people to change their travel habits, and we need a long enough period to average out the impact of other variables that affect congestion, such as roadworks, holiday periods, Christmas market, and so on. And it will also take us longer to understand the impact in local areas outside of the city centre. I really welcome the commitment to work together going forward, and that I really welcome that Bishop Road traders have expressed that tonight, and Andrew from the bid. And I really appreciate the offers to share data and to develop that constructive relationship and to build in the positive motivators rather than the negative motivators and enable more people to choose sustainable travel options and really support our local businesses and help them to thrive. And I also take on board those outstanding challenges raised by some of the speakers today, and will ask officers to pick those up in the review. I think now what we want to see is a period of time to gather the data and let the revised charges that we're bringing forward today bed in. We absolutely need to continue to listen and monitor the impact of parking charges, and we've committed to do that at 3, 6, 9 and 12 months into the year. And we accept the challenge under the Traffic Management Act raised as part of the Bishop Road petition to review parking charges and consult with the local community and traders. And at the same time, as officers have said, we will continue to develop a wider city parking strategy and address some of those anomalies, such as the random spots of free parking that are within 2 kilometres of the city centre, where we need to do things like raise a traffic regulation order to change them. So in conclusion, I really thank everybody for their input, for the representations that I've had from members of the public, from residents, from traders. It's made us think long and hard, and we welcome that challenge. We want to get this right and we want to make it work for the city. And I really thank the officers for all the work that's gone into this and the work going forward. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, Councillor Avilius, and thank you for outlining that in such detail and covering the majority of the points that were raised in the representations that I know you've received over time and that were made this evening. And before we move to the recommendations, I would like to personally thank the communities as well that both Councillor Avilius and I have interacted with, and we've gone out and met with people and heard their concerns. And I know there's a number of people in the room this evening that we have met through that process. And we'd like to thank you for your accommodation of us and coming tonight as well. So on that note, the recommendations to executive are on page 6 and 7 of the supplement agenda pack at paragraph 30, and they range from item number A to P. There's a lot of them, but I will take the time to read through them because it's important that for the public record that everybody knows what changes we're making. So please do bear with me while I do that. So executive is invited to take a holistic citywide approach to considering the options presented and A, approve an increase in the discount for the Minster badge to 30% of the standard parking charge from the current 24%. B, maintain existing on-street parking charges on and inside the inner ring road with the following exception at C. C says to approve the adjusting of charges in the Micklegate and Priory Street area to the outside the inner ring road on-street parking rate rather than its existing higher city centre rate. This will be reviewed in the future, and city centre evening parking rates for this area will still apply. D, maintain existing charging at all city centre car parks with the exception of Bishopthorpe Road, which it's proposed is moved in line with charges approved for community car parks at East Parade and Rowntree Park in the Council's 2025-26 budget. E, approve a standard lower rate outside the inner ring road to apply to on-street parking, matching rates at Bishopthorpe Road, East Parade and Rowntree Park car parks. F, approve that East Parade car park should remain matched to the outer on-street local parking rates. G, to remove the proposed charges for dedicated motorcycle bays. H, increase the discount for low emission vehicle permits to 20% from the current 16% discount. I, approve that contract parking permits are no longer linked to season tickets and will be set at last year's prices plus circa 5% with a 20% discount for low emission vehicles. J, to undertake a review and develop a policy position around travel to places of worship. K, should executive approve a change to the amount paid for the low vehicle emission discount, contract, season and res park permit holders will be refunded the difference. L, to note that if approved, the new charges will need to be advertised in accordance with legislation, meaning those charges implemented will be subject to a pending review under the Traffic Management Act 2004, right to challenge parking policies. M, accept the challenge to review parking charges under the Traffic Management Act 2004 in respect of Bishopthorpe Road and initiate the review. N, to approve that a further report will be brought back to executive upon the conclusion of the review. And O, to approve that the parking income budget is not changed at this time, whilst recognising the impact of the proposed changes could be in the region of 115,000. And P, to request that updates on parking usage and income is included in quarterly finance and performance monitoring reports, and any variances are considered within the whole council budget. So please can I see those who are in approve those recommendations as outlined. So that is approved unanimously as well. Thank you for that. And I would just like to say to everybody before we move on from this that Councillor Eyre said that this is a U-turn and it's an embarrassment, but I actually feel as though we are an administration that is going to do things. We will not sit still and not take action where we think it's appropriate and has been evidence-based. But as I have said numerous times, my style of leadership is a reasonable style of leadership. And when concerns are raised, I will listen and I will go out to the community and listen and take those on board and take action to make appropriate changes and try and accommodate everybody's needs. And this is what this is about. So I will not take that we are not listening. That just isn't the case at all. So thank you for that. And we will now go to item number 10. And that is urgent business. And we have no urgent business. So I will bring the meeting to a close. And thank you for attending, everybody.